You're listening to Growing Hope Conversations, the podcast from Growing Hope, a charity offering free therapy for children and young people with additional needs and support for their families. Join our host Bambi French as she welcomes guests who've been there, sharing real stories, honest struggles, and how churches can truly make a difference.
Sophie, welcome to the Growing Hope podcast.
Hi.
How are you? You doing good?
I'm good, thank you. Now that we've ironed out our little tech
Yeah,
issues.
we had a little bit of a technical glitch before hitting record.
Yeah, but I'm just so glad to be here. It's lovely to meet you.
It's really
So
nice.
thanks for having
Really
me.
nice to meet you too. I'm excited for our conversation today. Before we get started, do you want to just tell everyone listening a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sophie Killingley. I've been married to my husband Pete for it's going to be 20 years next month.
Wow.
I know, I don't look old enough.
Amazing. I know. Well, I'm hitting 23 years this year.
Hey, you don't look old enough.
You're doing really well.
So
well done.
yes. So 20 years next month, we have two neurodivergent teenagers, Phoebe, who's 17, and Solomon, who is 14. I'm a freelance artist and writer, so I do freelance life, man. You do a range of things. I write sometimes for like Premier Christian magazine, working on books. I do a lot of art, so sometimes that's for charities, sometimes that's graphic recording, which is being an artist at a live event, which is pretty fun. It's kind of high pressure, but that's literally listening to keynote speeches and drawing live while my iPad is hooked up to the camera. So high pressure, but fun.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of fun and quite a varied creative life.
Awesome.
So yeah, me and my husband was a pastor for 10 years and now he works for the Westminster-based charity CARE, which works in politics.
Okay, awesome. So you're busy.
Yeah, very busy.
You are busy.
But
Busy
yeah.
being active, but having fun doing it. Oh, that's really good. And we'll get on to talk a little bit more about your art and how that intersects with your faith and how it all works together. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your diagnosis story? Where it all
For sure.
started? Yeah.
So, when I first had my kids, I knew nothing about autism or neurodivergence at all. I didn't really know anything. And then I had a couple of friends whose kids were autistic and they presented differently to how I thought autism might show up. I don't know what I really expected. And then I started noticing things in my son. And so he actually got diagnosed autistic when he was just 3 years old, which is pretty young.
Yeah.
But he displayed a lot of just very stereotypical for little boys autism traits. So he was quite rigid with his lining up all of his toys in a row. They needed to be like that. He had a lot of delayed language, but he did this thing called echolalia, which is when he'd parrot your speech back to you. So it wasn't that he couldn't talk, but he just couldn't figure out what language was for. And so I'd say to him, "Are you hungry, bud?" And he'd just say, "Are you hungry, bud?" Like he had no idea that there was supposed to be like a yes or no answer to that. And then I'd say, "No, tell mummy." And he'd say, "No, tell mummy." So it was very cute, but also very frustrating. And then he'd get really mad because he couldn't communicate. And so he just, had real difficulties with language. And like the concept of time passing in a day, even, he didn't really understand the transition between things. So if I said, "It's time to stop trains now, it's time to go eat lunch," he would kind of freak out, not really understand that you stop trains now, then you eat lunch, and then you go back to the trains. Like for him, there was no kind of concept of the passing of time. So I used to have to draw little cartoon like Solomon's going through the day to show him like this is what we're doing, and then we'll have that, and then we'll have that. So to help him just kind of grasp it. So Yeah, so that was him aged 3. And so we had a lot of early intervention for him, a lot of speech and language therapy and occupational therapy because he was dyspraxic as well, which means he struggled with movement and coordination and he had poor muscle control in terms of holding a pencil in school and things like that. Um, when he started being able to speak properly and grasp language, he took off and became like a little professor. So it was really surprising to me because, again, that taught me that sometimes if your child struggles to communicate, it doesn't mean that they don't have a lot to say.
Mm.
It just maybe they haven't found the words for it yet. Um, and then with my daughter, she was diagnosed, but only aged 10. Again, fairly young for a girl, but
Yeah.
yeah, for a lot of doctors and GPs, they just aren't aware of the presentation of autism in girls. So we took our daughter to the GP because we were like pretty sure she's autistic. She was having huge anxiety, having a lot of trouble around sensory things to do with light and sound, and couldn't cope with certain textures on her skin, like her school uniform. And the doctor said, "Oh, she can't be autistic. She's a girl." And we were like, "Well, no, autism is definitely in girls too." And he was like, "Well, she's too old. It would have shown up before now." And we already knew, having done our research and like having a son already, I was like, no, it actually shows up a lot later in girls because
Yeah.
they are much more socially adept at masking and watching how their peers act, and they just copy until they can't anymore.
Yeah.
So we finally went through a long process and got her diagnosed as autistic as well. So yeah, a long process for her, and
Yeah.
it was quite a painful one as well. It really involved her having a full mental breakdown
Yeah.
before we really got the help and the kind of belief that she was actually struggling.
Mm, mm. So going through, you've got two children who were diagnosed at different times, but you recognise that there were additional needs there quite early on, and it's your story is not, even though every story is unique, your story is not different
Mm.
from tens
No.
of families going through the same thing. Noticing there's maybe something that needs to be checked out,
Yeah.
and then maybe going to professionals and saying, we think there's something here, there's an issue here, we need to
Yeah.
kind of figure out what it is, and then being told, well, no, it's not, you know, especially for
Mm.
girls, and
Yeah.
see now so many, don't we? So many women, so many young women who are being diagnosed with autism because they have masks for so long. So
Yeah.
how do
Masked
you?
for so long. And yeah, and also the diagnostic criteria is really like weighted towards males. It's really
Mm,
frustrating, but
mhm.
doctors are kind of taught the presentation and how it looks like in males, and it's
Yeah,
just so different for females. Of course it is. So
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So having to, I mean, still young children, with
Mm,
a diagnosis, um, and being, a family of faith, you're Christians,
mm,
where we find our support as Christians and Christian families is within the church. What was
yeah.
your experience? I guess, well, even maybe through the diagnosis process, but even especially like after
Mm,
you knew, okay, our two children have autism. What was your experience within church when you kind of
yeah.
when you understood what was going on, but maybe others didn't?
Mm. Well, I think it was mixed. It was a very mixed thing. So some people incredibly supportive and just wanting to kind of, oh, tell me about it. Let me know. Um, as some people incredibly just trying to make things accessible. For example, when we first showed up at the church my husband was pastor at, my son, he just couldn't sit still at all. He couldn't sit in the pew at all, and he wouldn't pay attention. And it was really tricky because I was the new pastor's wife and I was trying to get to know people, and I'd have like 2 minutes of a conversation and then I'd be like, "What? He's run out the door again." And I'd be like, "Hold that thought." And I felt really rude all the time because people would be trying to get to know me and I'd be like going, "Can't stop, gotta run, child on the loose."
Yeah.
But it was amazing that the audio visual team in my church, they found out that his specialist interest, the thing he loved more than anything, was dinosaurs. And so what they did was they programmed little cartoon dinosaurs to stomp across the screen at just like random intervals.
Yeah.
So when we would be sat there in the beginning of church and just the notices are going up and the welcomes and stuff, a random pterodactyl would just fly past. And my son spotted this and was just transfixed. And it meant that he actually stayed in the room because he was just like waiting for the next dinosaur to come. And just that really thoughtful little thing meant that I was able to have conversations that I really needed to have. So that was incredible. But then you get some people who, I don't think they intentionally mean to be cruel or rude. They just don't understand about autism and how that can look. And so some comments can just be really unhelpful or hurtful. And again, they just don't understand. And they can be, especially with my kids being the pastor's kids, pastors' kids can be watched and held to a different standard.
There's an expectation, isn't there?
There's an expectation. And when your kid can barely make it into church, because my daughter had extreme anxiety and would sit with her hood up and just stare at the floor. And to other people, that might look like a moody teen who's just rebellious and doesn't want to be in church. But actually, she really did want to be there. And she had her own faith, but she struggled so much with the environment that the noises, the kind of unpredictability of other kids running around, the sound of the music, not knowing who was going to come and talk to her, those kind of things she found incredibly difficult. And so what presented as looking like a rude, aloof teenager was actually just somebody really struggling and using all of their faculties just to try and stay in the room, And so often she'd have a panic attack and have to kind of leave through the service. And sometimes people just wouldn't really get that and be like, oh, they're leaving again. So, tricky.
What impact would you say that, the presentation of your children? I refrain from using the word behavior because people always assume that, associate that with a negative thing. But all behavior is a response to what's going on. So,
right,
whether it's good or bad.
It's all communication, isn't it?
All communication, exactly. But what impact did then the way in which your children presented have on your church? I say church experience. I don't want to say faith experience because I think they're two different things. But maybe your church.
Yeah,
your
for
church
sure, they are.
Yeah.
It just felt very isolating at times. It felt isolating and lonely because so often I would just have to leave halfway through a service because my daughter wasn't coping and would be shaking or crying or just need to get out. And so I'd take her and we'd be usually sat at the front because that's where she liked to sit. And so everyone would watch us go. But so often I just wouldn't hear from anybody. I wouldn't have any follow-up, we missed you or you guys okay? And again, I think people aren't intending to be cruel or anything like that. I just think they don't know what to say. They feel awkward, so they just ignore it. But then that just leaves the adult who is just continually missing out on fellowship and teaching and a church experience. You just feel just really alone. And so it's really isolating, and you feel a sense of shame as well, because if people aren't talking, then you kind of think, oh, are they judging me? Is that what's happening? Do they think I'm a bad parent? And sometimes people do think that and will tell you. And other times it's just people feeling awkward and don't know what to do. So, it's just really difficult. And especially if you're there are certain standards, I think, within Christian parenting. There are these expectations, especially for a pastor's wife, that, you kids look like this, you do this. And when you don't fit that narrative at all, it can just leave a lot of kind of shame and failure. And it's a really tricky one to kind of to keep showing up week on week and to experience that.
Now, I know there's a story about that, that showing up week on week.
Mm.
Was it able to continue? Was there
Well,
a
it was
turning point where you had to?
yeah, well, it was really, really tricky. And in the end, it was quite painful because there were expectations around what we were able to offer as a family in terms
Mm,
of hospitality. Um, I think a lot of churches can have this expectation that the pastor preaches on Sunday, talks to everybody after the church, and then loads of people come back round to his for a slap up roast and hanging out and stuff, which is the ideal.
yeah.
In
Well,
some ways,
yeah.
sure, that would be great, but if my kids had stayed in the whole service, sometimes they'd make it and
Mhm,
stay in the whole service. The amount of effort it would have taken them to kind of remain in a service and then socialize afterwards. It was literally like, come home, I'm going to go and sit in a dark room with my weighted blanket and just, be silent for 3 hours in recovery.
mhm,
It was literally that kind of
mm,
thing. So it's just not possible or fair to
mhm,
have people around. My daughter also has a diagnosis of OCD as well. And so food is quite an issue. And so having other people with messes and yeah, it's difficult when she finds like uncleanliness, different aspects of OCD that show up quite strongly for her. It's tricky to have other people around with the messes and the noises, and it just doesn't work. And so, yeah, so sadly, we had to leave that situation. It wasn't really our choice, but
mm,
I just think it highlights some of the missed expectations of what people with additional needs can manage.
yeah.
And I think especially with autism, because it is one of the invisible disabilities,
Mm,
in my children are both incredibly bright. They're both verbal, they both can participate in school. Um, so they look to all kind of purposes neurotypical. And so sometimes people find it hard to believe if I say, well, this is how bad the struggle is, because
mm,
they're just seeing a snapshot, like
yeah.
an hour. And they're like,
Mhm,
well, they managed, didn't they? And I'm like, yeah, but now it's going to be 3 hours in the dark and no talking and, in order to kind of make up for the energy spent. So,
yeah,
yeah, it was
yeah.
painful that we ended up not being able to continue our ministry as a
Mhm,
result of some of those missed expectations.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you weren't able to continue your ministry in that sense, in that
Mm,
particular sense, and I think it's quite a nice, intro into kind of the work you do now, and actually how you use the work you do now as the new ministry, as the new way
mm,
of reaching people. Talk to us about talk to us about your work and what you do now, and what I guess where it's what's
mm,
inspires you to create, and the impact that you leave because of the work that you do.
Yeah, thanks. So I'd been an artist and writer for some time, but
Mhm,
when you're raising younger kids, especially with additional needs, and being a pastor's wife, there's only so much you can do. You compartmentalize your time. Whereas now I'm so much more freed up, and I'm thrilled that I'm actually writing a book, which will be out next year with IVP UK, and it's called Blessed are the Neurodivergent,
mhm,
and I'm just wanting to write a handbook really for the average church member and the church leaders to be able to read, to kind of go, oh, okay, so we know that neurodivergence is a thing now.
mhm,
So what is it?
mhm,
How can it present? So what I want to do is just to have workable definitions for people, because they don't know where to look for information, you know,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of misinformation out there as well,
It's
you
not-
know.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
Absolutely.
I've had the weirdest hot takes given me on like why my kids might be autistic, and I can promise you it's not because I didn't give them enough kale smoothies
Yeah.
when they were children. Nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to write this book to be able to show church members, pastors, leaders, like, this is what neurodiversity is. Actually, it's just another way that God has created diversity within humanity. There's incredible strengths. Yeah, there's struggles too, because we live in a fallen, broken world. So, of course, there's struggles, but also there's incredible strengths too. And I just want to be able to write about that experience. And I've actually got a questionnaire out at the moment, a Google form, which I've asked people to let me know what their church experience is like, if they're on the autistic spectrum or neurodivergent, or if they have kids who are. And so that's been incredible. So far, I've had nearly 300 respondents telling me about from all over the world, telling me about what church has been like for them, both good and bad. You know, I'm like, what's working? What isn't working? And it's just so great to be able to now use the platform I've been given with my art and writing to be able to, like, to talk honestly about this,
Yeah.
because so many people feel just alone. They feel that sense of shame that I felt, that sense of I'm doing something wrong. I'm failing as a parent, or I'm just not doing a great job as a Christian parent. And I just want to reassure people that actually, no, it really is that hard. And we need the church family, we need the community around us. And so we've got to learn about this together, guys. You know, we've really got to get to grips with what is this? How does it look like? And how can we kind of step towards each other to learn about each other?
Absolutely. And yeah, and I always marvel at how connected we are in 2025, this day and age, but how disconnected still we are, and
Yeah.
that those issues around isolation, that people feel, you know. At Growing Hope, we run like the When Dreams Change course, and meet with the families, you know, of children who have these additional needs, and time again it comes out that, you know, well, I don't have any friends, or I don't have anyone who can support me, or I feel like you know, I'm alone in this, and that I haven't met the expectation of my church or my family, or, you know. And people then with their views, you know, you haven't eaten this, you need to eat
Yeah.
this, more of this, and it's
Yeah.
like information that's needed when you are completely, you know,
When
feeling
you're
that
struggling.
really struggling. You don't need someone telling you. I always laugh because I was diagnosed with visual impairment when I was younger, and when I first started going back to church, and, you know, it was all prayer and healing and all of that sort of thing. I remember one woman saying to me, "Have you tried eating more carrots?" I was like,
Sounds
okay,
delish,
this
but
sounds really
okay.
sure carrots are going to fix this one.
Yeah,
So, yeah, there's
totally.
definitely, and it's the advice I give parents a lot: find credible sources for your information, because,
Yes.
you know, the internet, once you go down that rabbit hole, you could take a wrong turn, and it could be, you know,
Oh, it's the Wild
disaster.
West out there. There's some
Absolutely.
absolute
Um,
crazy stuff out there.
yeah, yeah. And that's why it's really inspiring, you know, people like you who have your experience. You know, you could, you know, someone could listen to, I guess, all of the Growing Hope podcasts and say, well, everyone's writing something, everyone's doing something, but actually your story will look the same, but it won't be the same as the other person who's writing a book, or the other one who's writing music
Exactly.
or poetry. And the work that God has given you to do is for a particular group of
Right.
two, you know.
You
It
know,
will.
and I always say that is the unique thing. It is your story, and that's what makes it unique. Um and I just think that it's one of these conversations that just needs more and more voices to be added to it. I mean, if you think about in the Christian market, think about how many books there are on, like, for married people, or
Yes.
you know, and books for parenting, and no one's had the definitive one or the final word. We need to have people adding their experiences. And and I'm sure there'll be things in my book that I'm going to miss, or you'll read the book and go, oh, I wish you'd spoken on that. And maybe that's God saying, hey, maybe that's your book to write.
Yeah, maybe that's for you to do. Exactly. There's room for everyone
There's room.
to do that. There definitely is. But it's great that you are taking up the mantle for what and following what God has asked you to do. How do you support the growth in the face of your children? Because there'll be, I don't know, I'm just surmising, but it might be that they see themselves as having additional needs and maybe not like everyone else. How do you continue to let them know that they are fearfully and wonderfully made? How do you
Great
keep that?
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, every kid is different, and
Mm.
every kid will respond in different ways. And I'll take the example of my daughter here. When she was diagnosed, oh, she was not happy about it, because
Mm.
autism was something that her annoying kid brother had. He was the reason we couldn't do cool stuff, and now she's got it.
Yeah.
Even because it presented so differently, and I was just like, well, you have autism, but for you it looks different. And she really didn't like it, and she used to feel less than. She was like, I just wish I was normal, in inverted commas. And she actually had this amazing teacher who has since gone to be with the Lord. But this teacher used to take her aside and say, Phoebe, that's her name. She's like, you keep saying that you think you're rubbish. She's like, but I just want to tell you that God doesn't make rubbish. So sorry, that logically can't be true. Which totally, like, my daughter was so like logical, and like with the art, she was like, oh, that's actually stumped me. I'm like, that's true. Like, God doesn't make rubbish. So, and just like those kind of repeated messages, like, you are who God has made you to be. And yes, there are struggles, because each one of us has struggles and difficulties. And some of yours are far bigger than what other people will experience. And that is hard. But knowing that God still loves you and cares for you, so she finds doing the Bible for her is a helpful routine. She likes reading devotionals now she's a teenager, which speak about the pain and difficulty of life. I don't know if you've come across the devotional Tumbling Sky by Matt Searles. But it's a beautiful devotional going through the Psalms, and it really spends a long time just being like, this psalm is a lament, because that psalmist is going through a really hard time. And I'm not gonna move from that today in today's reflection, because things don't get sorted out in one day. Sometimes things are just hard, and it's right. And like, yes, we want to try and move to that place of praising God despite eventually, but it is good to sit sometimes and go, God, sometimes I don't know why life is like this, but it is. And I guess I have to trust you're good, but I'm pretty sad and mad about it, And I think that kind of thing helped my daughter, just to be like, no, I can tell God that I'm not happy about this. And that's okay. And I can still also know that he loves me and cares about me, and that I'm made uniquely, So it's both those things. It's both kind of trying to learn and understand God's goodness, God's plan, God's care, while also going, I'm kind of not happy about some of this. It's difficult.
Yeah.
But,
And it's okay to feel all those things and express all of those things to
because
the
life
one,
is
the one you met.
complex. Life
Absolutely.
is complex, and we can't just kind of pretend that, just because we know God, that, it's all fine. Like, sometimes it's just not. Sometimes it's just really hard.
Yeah.
And it is for her. Life is hard for her,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
know. She has a
Yeah.
lot of different diagnoses. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool to see her be able to kind of acknowledge the entirety of that, being like, "Now God loves me. He's got me." But
Yeah.
also it's really hard.
Mhm. Yeah. I think your words will bring so much encouragement to people who feel like they have to have it all together. I mean, you do that anyway.
Yeah.
As a parent, you feel like you have to have it all, all together because that's what
Oh, yeah.
everyone tells you. You should just know what you're doing, and a lot of the time not. But then when you add the added complexity of having children with additional needs or
Totally.
family with additional needs, that then brings in a whole new level of things that you have to kind of juggle and manage, and it
Oh,
can be,
totally.
and sitting in that sometimes, in that difficulty, and saying and acknowledging that you still have God is still with you. He's never left you. He
Mm.
will never leave you. But actually, it's okay to feel those things as well,
Yeah.
and to express
And
them.
learning, I had to learn to let go of my own expectations of what I
Mhm,
thought life was gonna look like for both
mhm,
me and my kids.
mhm.
You know, I found that it was the expectations that were hurting me because I was like, "But it should be like this."
Yeah.
And trying to kind of comparing and thinking, "But I wanted it to be like this for us."
Mhm,
And trying to just accept, like, this is the life I've actually got.
mhm.
And also letting go of other people's expectations as well, and being
Yeah.
like, well, they think that I should do that because that's how
Yeah.
they think parenting works, but they don't have my kids and they don't have
Yeah.
my life.
Mhm,
So I actually
mhm,
have to make the decisions, you know,
mm.
under God, what's right for us,
Yeah.
and that's
Absolutely.
tricky as a people pleaser. And as a pastor's wife for a while as well, that was tricky, to be able to make those calls and be like, "No, this
Mhm.
is what we're doing because this is what we need to do." But I felt like I was taking one for the team, I was doing one for the moms who all feel lonely and judged. I'm like, "No, I'm gonna do this at the front out loud."
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, they won't now that they can hear you, now that they've heard your story, hopefully they'll not feel so alone, and so, that they'll know
Yeah,
there are others, Sophie out there, but there are others who are out there as well, and that's the whole point of what
totally.
we're doing, with Growing Hope is bringing people together, helping people understand, helping
Mhm.
churches in particular understand and be
Yes.
more inclusive. Like you say, it's not out of a necessary sort of malice or anything like that. It's
Mm,
about helping people
they just don't
understand,
know.
isn't it? Yeah, they
Yeah,
just
for
don't know.
sure.
But the
And
church is
that's
where it needs to start. Uh-huh.
And that's also what I love to do with my art as well, is to
Mm,
kind of um, try and create kind of space for parents and neurodiverse people.
mm,
I do a lot of kind of cartooning and illustration, and I like to try and bring a lot of humor into it. So
mhm,
I've drawn various misadventures of what's happened in church with autistic kids,
mm.
just because, like, sometimes it's also, like, hilarious. It's so embarrassing what happens, with your kid with no filter
Mhm.
who just says really loudly, "I don't like this church." And you're just like, "Shh, no, don't say that,"
You might
you
be
know?
right, but we'll talk about it
Yeah,
later.
you know?
Yeah.
Exactly. Or they get so carried away with the music. Like, this is my son. He just wants to dance to everything. He just literally starts trying to break dance with no prior experience on the pews. He's trying to do the splits, and I'm like, dude, you can't do that right now. So that's what I try and cartoon, just to let other people know, like,
Yeah.
this is what happens. This
Yeah.
is this is the reality of it. It's really
Yeah.
funny and really
Uh,
embarrassing,
yeah.
but it's okay. This stuff happens.
Yeah, yeah. I think throughout our conversation, and we're gonna have to, unfortunately, come to an end, which is, but
Okay.
I'm sure we'll speak again soon. But throughout our conversation, I think you've given so many words of wisdom and encouragement to everyone listening, really. But I think more, towards the families and the maybe the young people listening who are going through the same thing. What 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 advice can you boil it all down to and just kind of leave
Mhm.
people with?
Oh, yeah. What advice? I think just knowing that it's okay that your life looks different to other people's.
Yeah.
It's okay. You know, if you've got additional needs or autism, it may not be visible on the outside, but you'll know that you're going to have difficulty with certain things, sensory processing. You're going to have difficulty with attention span, with various different things, and your life is going to look different. It's going your capacity for managing things is going to be different, and sometimes you're going to feel like, I need to be like the other people. You don't. It's okay. In fact, it's important to be honest about what really works for you and what really doesn't. You know, I just want people to be honest, because I think we can only really learn from each other and learn to bear each other's burdens if we're honest. And church needs to be ready for that. They need to be able to understand that we're not a bunch of people who have got it all together. We haven't cleaned ourselves up and come in to kind of be like, look at my amazing life now that I love Jesus. It's like, no, we're all still dealing with a lot of stuff. Life is messy and each of us is going to have difficulties. So we're going to have to be honest about that. And we have to be able to be a safe space for people to express that and go, I haven't got it all together either. And that's okay.
Awesome. Where can people find out a bit more about you, Sophie, and your work?
Well, my website is www.perishandfade.com. So that is where you can find my artwork. And I also have a new Substack as well, which I'm inviting people on. As I write this book, Blessed are the Neurodivergent, I want to be connecting with people as I write it. I want to be firing some of my ideas out and getting feedback from people who are following along. And so my new Substack is, it's my name. So it's substack.com/@Sophie Killingley.
Okay.
So you can find me there writing about neurodivergence and my process in writing this book.
When's the book supposed to be out? You said next year. Is it like this time
Next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm in the process of writing it right now.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll link to everything in the show notes for everyone to come and to find you and your work. I did have a look at your website. It's very cool. Very
awesome. And I'm on Instagram as well,
Yes.
@PerishAndFade. And that's where I narrate my life out loud pretty much. I'm always there talking about life and what's going on. So come and join me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sophie.
You're so welcome.
It's been wonderful. And I have no doubt that your story will inspire many to pick up that pen, start writing, pick up that pen, start drawing, whatever they feel and however they feel they need to express what they've gone through as well.
There's room for us all.
Absolutely.
Everyone should be able to access their church. In this podcast, you've heard how this isn't always easy for some people. Growing Hope's accessibility training helps churches become welcoming places for every child and family. We'll train your whole church community, not just to give your building wider doors and access ramps, but to help you change your culture so that every child and young person is welcome. Book your training today at growinghope.org.uk/churches.